Thank you, Shivani for a generous introduction. I don't deserve much of that. Honorable Finance Minister Dr. Shori Muagle, the keynote speaker of the today's event, Amitabh Kant, uh, business leaders, President of FNCCI, CNI, and Acting President of Nepal Chamber of Commerce, economists, intellectuals, distinguished guests, and journalists. Very good afternoon. I think we are already into the afternoon. The program started 1 hour late, and I'm told to speak for more than 30 minutes, which is not my normal pattern. I normally speak very short, but this time around I'll be speaking a little longer. So I would like to request for your patience. This is a privilege for me to be here today. So I'd like to thank Pratik Pradhan, who personally invited me to speak in this symposium. I was also the first speaker, keynote speaker in the first of the symposiums she organized way back in Baahrakhari. So it's a privilege again. So thank you, Pratik ji and the Baahrakhari team. Nepal sits atop the roof of the world. We are home to 8 of the planet's 10 highest peaks. Our rivers carry more hydroelectric power than most nations will ever dream of. Our soil has minerals that can power the batteries of tomorrow. Our people, young, resilient, and hungry for opportunity. Just now, Michael Foley also outlined the enthusiasm of the young people from Boston, are among the most remarkable on this earth. And yet, we import more than we export. Our youths leave before they build. Our capital flows out before it works. We are, in the most painful sense, a rich nation like a poor one, living like a poor one. Today, I'd like to speak plainly, not in the cautious language of bureaucracy, which I was normally used to, except when I was briefly minister, but with the urgency this moment demands. I'd like to propose a short fiscal and monetary roadmap, one that does not merely manage our economy, but perhaps unlocks its potentials and perhaps also supports the growth objective of this government. To set the tone, let me point out to a few numbers. The average growth rate of the past decade is about 4.3%. We have 83,000 megawatt of hydropower potential. That is what we claim. Nearly 21% of the youths, particularly Gen Z people, are unemployed officially. And every year we receive about 1.7 trillion of remittance, and it is rising. These numbers tell a story of a nation that's on the verge of transformation, waiting for the right policies. The institutions which are corrupted in the past, they have to be corrected, and the political will to leap forward. I sense that we now have all of these three things. To recommend measures that needs to be taken up, I need to briefly diagnose the current situation, which Dr. Shori Muagle in his recent paper presented on the situation of Nepal's economy, situation paper. He has clearly outlined. I'm repeating a few points from there. Number one, fiscal dysfunction. Nepal's public expenditure has chronically underperformed year after year. Ambitious capital budgets are announced by federal government through the annual budget, and year after year, barely half are spent. The average for the last 4 years was below 55%. Subnational governments are no different in the execution of the capital expenditures. Low budget absorption is not a minor technical issue. It is a structural failure that leaves highways dilapidated, bridges unbuilt, power lines incomplete, and hospitals half constructed. Our revenue mobilization as a share of GDP remains thin, although it is highest, fortunately, among South Asian nations. Around 19%, which is very high, but it is thin because our public expenditure burden that we created in the past has been very high. We are over-reliant on import duties and value-added tax, both of which fluctuate with remittance inflows, creating a pro-cyclical fiscal policy that amplifies booms and busts rather than smoothing them. That is the biggest problem of our fiscal side. On the monetary misalignment, we have maintained Nepal's peg to the Indian rupee for decades. This provides comfort. This provides import price stability. But it also surrenders an independent monetary policy tool. When our economy needs a different interest rate than India's, we cannot provide it. That was the reason why we faced serious problems in the last 4 years. When we need to depreciate to boost exports, we cannot. The peg is a double-edged sword, and we have rarely talked honestly about its costs. I said honestly because we have never discussed this honestly. Third, credit market failures, which is evident now, evidence is talking about. Nepal's banking sector is liquidity driven, but not productivity driven. Credit flows heavily into real estate and trading, inflating land prices, diverting capital from manufacturing, and creating financial vulnerabilities. Very obvious at the moment. Agriculture, which employs the majority of our population, receives a fraction of the credit it deserves. Small entrepreneurs, especially women and youth in the rural areas, face collateral requirements that make formal credit almost inaccessible for them. Fourth, structural bottlenecks. Our landlocked geography is a constant, but it is not an excuse. Poor road connectivity, high logistics costs, inadequate transmission lines, and complex customs procedures make, in spite of all the reforms we did, it remains still a problem, make even our most competitive sectors globally unviable. We have become a net importing country when we should be an export economy of scale. Finally, dysfunctional governments. That is the reason why Gen Zs had so much of frustration. In all these years since the country became republic, successive governments led by political parties with diverse ideologies have one thing in common. All of them said that private sector is engine of growth. Every government in its first few months organized investment forums, investment summits to attract foreign investors. Every time a prime minister visits a foreign country, I accompanied prime minister twice to China and thrice to India, once to Patna with Dr. Bauram Bhattrai to see how Nitish Kumar was doing at that time. So every time, every prime minister, no matter which party he belongs to, no matter what political or economic ideologies they carry, everyone said that foreign investment is very important for Nepal. Everyone invited foreign investors, and not only during the visits, but also during the visit of foreign dignitaries, ministers or secretaries. The first thing our ministers said, the first thing our secretaries said, that we would like to request you to send your private sector to Nepal, and many of those would oftentimes respond, you go and talk to private sector directly. We cannot compel any private sector of our country to go to your country. Your country has to have right environment. So in spite of this, domestic private sector always remains in wait and watch mode. Even now, people talk to me that although government is doing very good, excellent, until now, in 1 month, the performance has been very good, appreciated by all, except a few instances. But private sector quietly in private meetings says, we are still waiting and watching. Things may be different tomorrow. 1 month does not show the entire picture. So it's a casting only. So, and the foreign investors are scared of the delays and lack of cooperation. 5G was already due, and Michael Foley has rightly highlighted the importance of 5G in Nepal. It's not that we do not have right policies. There is certainly need for significant new age reforms. Our policies are still good, but we have rooms for improvement. But existing policies, if implemented with honesty and sincerity, those are not inadequate. However, our institutions are weak, and the people who work there aren't friendly towards investors. This is a bitter reality. So in this context, I am presenting a brief outline of what really we should do on the fiscal, on the monetary side. I will not be touching upon all the economic sectors. The first one is Nepal must dramatically increase productive public investment, not just budgetary allocations, but actual disbursement. I propose a national infrastructure execution agency so that the strategic, very important projects, highways, the inland container depots, trade logistics, transmission lines, optical fiber link with outside world. So that agency could implement those projects with procurement authority and multi-year capital budgets and single window project clearance, so that you don't need to go to different places to get the clearance for forest, for land, for lots of other different issues, community harmony and all those things. No more ministerial veto chains that stop a road project in its third year. No more annual budget cycles that restart 36 months project from again zero. Our target in the interim should be hydropower export at scale. Every megawatt we sell to India and Bangladesh is a dollar earned, a job created, a debt avoided. The recently signed power agreement are beginning, but we need transmission investment, grid modernization, and pricing frameworks that make Nepal the clean energy powerhouse of South Asia. This should be the short to medium term goal for us, so that we can make some money out of selling the power to South Asian countries. In the longer run, however, I advocate that we must aim for domestic industrial base that can fully use clean energy potential that we have. And data center can be immediately a good investment for making use of the hydropower generation we do. So to be precise, raise capital expenditure execution to about 85 to 90% from the current level of below 55% within 3 years via performance linked budget releases with Dr. Shodi Magle. He knows the problem. He also knows the solution. He has to give the leadership. Establish multi-year infrastructure contracts insulated from annual budget cycle allocations. The system is already there. Political will has to be there. Prioritize cross-border connectivity. Number one, roads, transmission lines, data connectivity, and trade logistics. And fast-track transmission lines to enable 5,000 megawatt hydropower export within a decade. Second, on the revenue transformation, we cannot build a 21st century economy on a 20th century tax base. Nepal must expand its direct tax net, not by squeezing existing taxpayers harder, but by bringing the informal economy into formal one. There is an estimate that around 40% of the economy is informal. We can formalize it. Digital payment infrastructure, mandatory PAN linkage, and simplified presumptive taxation for small businesses are not radical ideas. They have been implemented elsewhere with good results, and they are proven tools used by our regional peers. Property taxation is our most underdeveloped revenue source. Although most of it goes to the subnational government, land in Kathmandu Valley is among the most expensive in South Asia, perhaps expensive compared to many advanced countries as well, relative to income. Yet it is taxed at rates that are almost laughably low. A land value tax reform would simultaneously raise revenue, discourage speculative land holding, and free up urban land for productive use. So, to be precise, I have 5 points. Expand the personal tax base through digital income verification. Target a 30% increase in direct tax payment amount within 3 years, which is possible, which should be possible. Introduce a progressive land value tax in urban municipalities. Ring fencing proceeds for local public services so that people see benefit from those taxes. Reduce distortionary custom duties on capital goods and industrial inputs. That is going against the concept of creating manufacturing base. Our manufacturing companies are weaker because they have to pay higher custom duties on raw materials and intermediary materials. Launch a national resource dividend framework. Royalties from hydropower, from telecom, from minerals, and tourism that can feed into the public wealth fund. So public wealth fund, which can be used to invest in infrastructure, can come from these dividends. Digitize VAT compliance, which is already in the pipeline, end-to-end to reduce evasion and refund fraud. Third one, fiscal federalism. Nepal's fiscal federal structure is young. Provincial and local governments have constitutional mandates, but too often lack fiscal capacity. technical expertise and accountability framework to fulfill those responsibilities. Intergovernmental transfers that arrive late, earmarked for activities provinces did not choose, so we rely excessively on conditional grant, stifle innovation, because when it is earmarked, you stifle innovation. The problem is further exacerbated by ad hoc in-year budget cuts by federal government, which was started 2 years ago, and provincial government and local government are pretty uncertain how much of the budget will be cut in the middle of the year. I also had to do it because the law was prepared that way, and many of my legal secretaries advised me not to deviate the legal provision, so I couldn't do it. I call for a results-based fiscal transfer system to local government and provincial government that meet health, education, and infrastructure delivery benchmarks. Those that cannot manage funds should receive technical assistance and not punishment, but partnership. Currently, what happens? There is a system of giving this kind of grant, but the municipalities or provinces which underspend are again penalized next year by budget cut. That is not the right way. The final one on the fiscal side is strategic debt management. Nepal's public debt is currently manageable as a share of GDP. It's around 45%, but the composition matters. Composition matters enormously. In recent years, government successfully argued and secured budget support loans. I think Dr. Wagle also is in favor of budget support. I see a very big demerit in the use of budget support because it gives the kind of flexibility that the government may run the risk of using it in least productive and the sectors where returns are not adequate. So that flexibility was good only when government was disciplined. But the government invariably becomes indisciplined. Therefore, I recommend that from now on, we should rather think of having project-linked concessional finance tied to clear deliverables so that the money we receive, which has to be refunded in the future from out of taxpayers' money, the future taxpayers will pay, gives us deliverables that can provide a return. And reduce gradually the budgetary support component. We must reduce dependence on expensive domestic borrowing that crowds out private credit, which Dr. Wagle has repeatedly said that we should not do anything that crowds out the private investments. And we must build a sovereign credit rating, which we lack, to access international capital markets on our terms rather than donors' terms. So in that sense, I have three precise points. One, publish a medium-term debt strategy, which has been begun, fortunately, updated annually with parliamentary oversight. It is not under parliamentary oversight now. It has to be presented to parliament so that the parliament knows, the sovereign people know that what is the debt strategy of the government. Pursue a sovereign credit rating to enable Panda or Samurai bond. I say Panda or Samurai because China now is flush with money, and Japanese also have money going outside for investments. Why don't we bring those monies to Nepal for investment in our infrastructure? Replace blanket subsidies with targeted transfers. On the monetary side, we must talk about exchange rate anchor. The Indian rupee peg has served Nepal's price stability well. I have already said I am not advocating its abandonment immediately, but I am advocating an honest national conversation about managed exchange rate flexibility. That can be in the form of managed float or crawling peg over the medium term. As Nepal's export basket diversifies beyond India into hydropower, minerals, tourism receipts, potentially digital services, which is growing now, we need the exchange rate to serve our economic structure, not just India's monetary policy cycle. We are currently serving India's monetary policy cycle. A crawling peg or managed float backed by adequate foreign exchange reserves. This is the right time because we have now the highest foreign exchange reserve in history. Could give Nepal monetary sovereignty it needs for the next generation of growth. This is a 5 to 10 year conversation, but it must begin now. And I chaired a high-level economic surveillance commission, and our report also advocates that we must move to crawling peg or managed peg over the period of next 3 years. Then as we diversify our export, increase exports, then we can move to fully flexible exchange rate regime. Next, the redirection of the credit. Nepal Rashtra Bank's priority sector lending mandates are a step in right direction, but oftentimes their implementation is very weak, with banks gaming definitions, parking paper compliant loans. Santosh Koirala should not be unhappy. This is what is happening. The reality is, this is the reality. In low impact users, we need genuine credit reorientation towards number one, agriculture and agro processing, collateral free lending against warehouse receipts and crop insurance. We need to have a new law for this purpose, trust receipt, so that the trust receipt loans can be issued. Currently, the law is inadequate, learning from India's Kisan credit card model. Manufacturing SMEs, a dedicated credit guarantee fund, government backed to de-risk first generation entrepreneurs. Green and hydropower projects, blended finance without windows that combine NRB refinancing at subsidized rates with commercial tranches. Real estate macroprudential tightening, and finally disaggregated credit reporting. Currently, the credit reporting masks the nature of the credit given by banks, so that the policymakers are oftentimes misled by how much credit is going to agriculture. So there is a misuse. Next, the financial inclusion at scale. Over 40% of Nepalis remain unbanked and underserved for formal finance. This is not a social welfare. It is an economic efficiency problem. Every farmer who borrows from moneylender at 36% instead of a bank at 10% is a productivity loss. Every remittance sent through informal channels is a fee that drains household savings. Nepal must accelerate its digital financial infrastructure, interoperable payment systems, which currently we lack. There is no international gateway, mobile banking, digital identity linkage, and agent banking networks in remote districts. The goal should be every Nepali adult with a bank account and a mobile wallet within 5 years. Yesterday, Amitabh Kantji was making a brief speech, and he highlighted the importance of digital payments and how he was able to make payment in the last 5 years without taking his wallet out. Everything digital. That's what Nepal should look for. Let me be clear. Fiscal and monetary policy are necessary but not sufficient. No central bank can build rule of law. No finance ministry can create trust between citizens and institutions. For our economic roadmap to work, we need 3 complementary reforms. First one is investment climate reforms, where different ministries need to have their policies right. Ministry for tourism, Minister of Tourism; for industries, Ministry of Industries; for hydropower, Ministry of Energy. Cut the average number of days registering a business from 17 plus currently to about 5 or less than 5. Why not online registration like Estonia does? Streamline environmental clearances without weakening standards. Create a single investment window for foreign direct investments. One desk, one answer, one timeline. Not like the one window, but many doors in the past. Second, human capital investment. A productive economy needs skilled workforce. Vocational training aligned to actual labor market demand, not bureaucratic curricula. English and digital literacy programs scaled to match ambition, because as you want to go out, we need to definitely have language advantage. Migration policy that creates diaspora bonds, not just remittance dependency. So our diaspora should be investors, not the remitters. Anti-corruption and governance. Corruption is a fiscal problem. It steals public money. It is a monetary problem as well. It distorts credit allocation. It is an investment problem as well. It deters capital, which we have seen recently through the investigation of our anti-money laundering agencies. The Commission for Investigation of Abuse of Authority must be empowered, protected, and staffed with people of unimpeachable integrity. Transparency is not a luxury, it is infrastructure. Finally, I would like to close with a commitment, not a forecast, with a vision. Within a decade, if we execute this brief roadmap, although the list is long because I have already recommended 408 recommendations through the High-Level Economic Commission's report, this much also is enough. Within a decade, If we execute this roadmap, Nepal can reach us and sustain 8 to 9% GDP growth within 8 to 9 years, I said. We can become a net exporter of clean energy. We can build a manufacturing and agro-processing base that employs our young people at home. We can have a financial system that reaches every household. We can have fiscal institutions that invest wisely and accountably. This is not a fantasy. Vietnam did it. Rwanda, from the rubble of genocide, is doing it. These countries did not discover new resources. They built new institutions and held different kind of ambition. The question before us is not whether Nepal can grow. It is whether we have political courage, institutional discipline, and collective will to let it happen. And there is collective will. The evidence is the Gen Z movement of September, which Michael Foley outlined. Hungary did, but no other countries did. That's what you said, right? And we are more than Hungary. We did in 7 days. Within 2 days, government gone. 7 days, new government was up and running with business recovery plan for all the damaged physical assets you did not see. We saw. The day I entered Singapore as new minister, Singapore was like a war zone. I had never physically visited any of the warring countries. No Ukraine, no Gaza Patti, Gaza Strip, but Singapore was more like that. So in that sense, I believe we can do it. Jai Nepal, Dhanyavad.